John Murray from the Westgate Superbook out in Las Vegas. Friend of the pod. What's going on, John? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, man. How's it going?
Bowls are winding down. There's only a couple ones left, so that's kind of sad. But let's first focus on the college football playoffs. One of the most interesting things that I think that I've seen in almost 15, 20 years of doing this. Obviously, I think that there's overreaction, square money in the market. But from where this line would have been a couple weeks ago to where it is now for the national championship of LSU -5, 5.5. But maybe a month ago, Clemson is a small favorite here. And all Clemson's done is continue to cover. I think they've covered for 2 months straight. But, LSU does what they did in the college football semifinal. You can expect there to be some overreaction. But talk to me about where you opened this line, what type of money you have seen since, and where you expect it to go.
Well, for starters, I agree with you. I think the number's an overreaction. We've had Clemson a little bit better than LSU the whole way. I thought they were about 3 points better than LSU going into the weekend. Now, I understand this game is in the Superdome, so there was always going to be a couple points going LSU's way there. The de facto, the home field advantage for LSU in this game. I still think the real number is closer to Pick'em or maybe LSU a very small favorite, and I think it's a total overreaction to what we saw over the weekend because, like I said, Clemson played an historically great Ohio State team. This is probably the best team the Big Ten's produced in the last decade. And LSU played an Oklahoma team that really had no business being in the college football playoff. That was only there because they had to fill out a field of 4 teams, and some of the SEC teams choked at the end of the year. I think it's a total overreaction. We opened at 3.5. We immediately went to 4. We had a guy come in. He laid 50,000 at -4. We went to 4.5. The money just kept coming in. Nothing but LSU money. We got up to, I think we got as high as 5.5 briefly. We came back down to 5. There was a lot of 6 on the market in town a couple days ago, but it looks like some sharper players bought up that 6. Most everybody seems to be at 5 or 5.5 right now. And I actually think, if anything, it might come down a little bit. The only way I think this number could go up is if all the favorites cover divisional playoff weekend, next weekend in the NFL. So many parlays are going to roll from those divisional playoff games into LSU on Monday night. You might see some books panic when they see their liability to the LSU Tigers in that game, and then they might raise the number up.
But you don't think that there's any shot? There's so much LSU money that there's no shot this thing comes even below 4. I mean, I could see it maybe getting the 4, but I mean, if you're someone who wants LSU -3, you're never going to get that, right? Pretty much.
I don't think there's any way you'll see 3. Even 4. There's just so much support for LSU, man. I mean, I think we're kind of on exactly the same page in how we view this game and how we view the market overreaction. But the bottom line is that all the big money so far is coming in on LSU. We've got about a 4-to-1 ticket count on LSU right now, which is pretty lopsided for a game of this magnitude. And then the other thing, at least at our book, we win a huge number on Clemson to win the national championship in the futures pool. So we're okay writing a little bit of money on Clemson right now because even if we take a big bet on the Clemson side, we're still going to win a ton if they win this game. So we don't really see much of a reason to lower the number, at least not right now.
So, and then in regards to the total, anything there early?
Mostly under bets on the total right now. We're at 70. We had opened it, I think we opened at 71 right when we first put this thing up. We went to 70.5. We're now at 70. I don't really have a strong take. I mean, that feels like about as high as it could ever be. And it's funny to me to see totals like that in the national championship game and see a total of 70. But we really liked the Peach Bowl over, and we booked it like that because we didn't see how either team or how Oklahoma could ever stop LSU from scoring, and we thought Oklahoma would be able to score too. But Clemson's a much different beast defensively. I don't think that these LSU receivers are just going to be running wide open all over the field against Clemson the way they were against Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, LSU realistically could have scored, 100 points if that game was competitive? I mean, that was...
It really reminded me of those early season games when these SEC schools play some layup game against some FCS team, and it's not even like a challenge for them. That's what it looked like. It was an embarrassing performance for Oklahoma and for the Big 12. Because I agree with you. If Oklahoma could have matched them score for score, I don't see why LSU couldn't have scored 100 points.
Yeah, it was crazy. And the thing that I think a lot of people aren't talking about is in future years, and you should keep this in mind for futures betting, is that's a black eye for the Big 12. So if you have a college football scenario next year where you have a Big 12 team and then someone else on the fringe, what we've seen out of the Big 12, a conference that I think that the committee has already, doesn't really love, and then they look back at this performance, I think that can, they're humans on the committee. It could sway a Big 12 team right out of the discussion.
I don't disagree with that. And, Oklahoma's 0-4 in the college football playoff now. Really only one of those 4 games were they competitive, talking about that Rose Bowl loss to Georgia a couple years ago. And then previous to that, they'd lost their last 3 BCS championship games. So 7 straight losses in national championship scenarios for Oklahoma. That doesn't reflect well on the Big 12 at all, because Oklahoma is obviously the flagship program in the Big 12. And it's a bad look. And Baylor getting handled pretty easily by Georgia in the Sugar Bowl when Georgia was sitting several players, let's say. That also really isn't a good look for the Big 12.
Yep, completely agree. All right, let's pivot before we get you out of here to the NFL this weekend.
Sure.
For Wild Card Weekend. We'll start on Saturday. Texans a 2.5-point favorite at home against the Bills. And then, you want to talk about overreactions potentially. The Patriots are only a 4.5-point favorite. This line, a few weeks ago, you might have seen this be 7. I feel like the Patriots are always a 7-point favorite at home in the playoffs. But last time you were on the pod, we were talking about, wow, the book needs the Cowboys against the Rams, and the Cowboys, who I was on as well, came through. Is there a chance that the book is going to need the Patriots here against the Ryan Tannehill in his first playoff start? What are you seeing in both of those games, AFC games on Saturday?
It's possible we might need New England for a little bit in the side market, but anytime New England loses outright, it knocks out so many money line parlays. So my guess would be that by the time the game kicks off, our best case scenario would be the Titans winning the game outright just to knock out those parlays. I don't think it's going to be a really big decision, though, because there is a lot of support for Tennessee, too. People don't trust New England right now. New England offense has been struggling for weeks. I've talked about that many times, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think Tennessee's got a pretty big edge at the quarterback position in this game. I just think that Belichick is always capable of having one of those masterpiece games where he totally outcoaches the other guy, and maybe it sets up like that on Saturday night here. I personally would definitely need more than 5 or 5.5 points to bet on Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree. I don't trust this Patriots team as far as I can throw them. I mean, Brady has looked awful all year. I mean, this is a guy who's completing 35% of his passes under pressure, worse than the NFL. I would agree. I need maybe 6 or 7 to look at Tennessee. But the dream scenario is the Patriots, in the rain, get a couple breaks, put together a great game plan, and then they roll. And then people start thinking New England's back, because I think that the funeral of their era might be next weekend in Kansas City.
Yeah, the only thing is, that's what I said last year going into the AFC Championship game, and all of our guys here, we loved the Chiefs in that game, and Brady just puts together this throwback performance, and they somehow win in Arrowhead. So,
but at least you saw glimpses of Brady last year. Yeah. I mean, he's a shell of himself. I don't know if he's hurt or he's just the age is showing, but Father Time is undefeated. But there's just something that's completely off with this offense.
His wide receivers are doing him no favors, by the way.
True.
I mean, I know everybody says all I do is crap on Brady, and Brady's been really bad this year, but his receivers are getting no separation. They're doing nothing to help him at all, and he is an aging quarterback, so he doesn't have the ability to just will the ball down the field by himself. He needs his receivers to help him out, as most quarterbacks do, and he's just getting nothing from his teammates on the offensive side of the ball this year. So it's not all on Tom Brady, and I'm kind of baffled that I keep reading about Josh McDaniels getting all these head coaching interviews, and I just don't understand why. I don't like the New England offense doesn't seem to be doing anything that every team in the league couldn't do.
Yeah, there's nothing innovative about what they're doing. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the offensive line isn't as good. They clearly missed Gronk. And then, there's a reason that they had Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon in there early in the year, who they don't have now. They obviously knew that they needed more talent at the receiving position, which they don't have now. All right, and then the other game, anything in Bills-Texans, or do you think that'll be pretty split?
It's really going to be a split game. Right now, the ticket count's basically exactly even. We did have a guy we respect came in a couple days ago. He played Houston -2.5, -110 to win $30,000. He moved us to -2.5, -120. Buffalo looks like a good teaser option, a relatively low total. You can go over 3, over 7, tease the Bills up to +8.5. It's an interesting game. It really is. To me, it's a total coin flip game. I give Buffalo the edge at every position other than quarterback and wide receiver. And a big edge, Sean McDermott over Bill O'Brien. I'm not a big fan of O'Brien at all. So a better defense, a better coach. You're getting a couple of points of Buffalo. The concern is Josh Allen. He's a 23-year-old kid. He's in his first playoff start. what are you going to get out of Josh Allen? I feel like we get flashes from him where sometimes I think to myself, this guy is going to be a really good NFL quarterback. Like on Thanksgiving Day, he looked great in that game. Other times, I just think to myself, what the hell is this kid doing out there? I don't know how – I wouldn't be too comfortable back in Buffalo unless you do it in a teaser and you get over that touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I'm glad you brought that up in our NFL pod. I brought that up. I said, look, well, I have a much better quarterback at home laying under a field goal, but, the defense is clearly not as good. And then I keep going back to that coaching mismatch that, that McDermott and his staff, I just value so much more over Bill O'Brien and his staff. And you mentioned teasers. Last year when I was in Vegas for the divisional round, there was two, as I've talked about on our podcast before, Wong teasers where you can tease, 1.5 to 2.5 point dogs up over the 7 and or 7.5 to 8.5 point favorites down. And I went to 6 books that did not let me bet a teaser, a Wong teaser, and the NFL playoffs. They just said, nope, we are not taking teasers today. I said, what do you mean you're not taking teasers today?
Well, what does that tell you if you're listening to the show? What does that tell you about those teasers?
Yeah, they're
good bets.
Yeah, you have an edge in a vacuum. Yeah. You have an edge over the book. They hit about 75% of the time, and you need them to hit about 72.5% to break even at -110. A lot of places now go to -120, where it's about a break-even proposition. But yeah, but you guys are taking teasers this weekend?
We take teasers, but I'll tell you right now, we got big juice attached to them, and I'll be even more frank. The reason why is because we lost to people doing those teasers over the course of several years. I think those are good bets, and there's 3 of them this week. New Orleans right now is a 7.5 point favorite. You can go down to 1.5, and Philadelphia is a 1.5 point dog. I actually like Philadelphia to win that game, but I'd be even more comfortable with a teaser getting them up to plus 7.5. So yes, we do take the bets, but we juice the hell out of you for them because we are well aware that they are good bets that are probably going to return you value long term. And if you have a book that lets you do them at -110, I'm talking about 6 pointers, I would certainly recommend that you do that.
Yeah, I've already done that one Sunday with New Orleans and Philly over 7.5 and then New Orleans under 3. So let's move on to Sunday here.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just I wish I had also something on Saturday that I could tease the Bills with, but it's 4.5 for anyone listening. I really wouldn't recommend that. Don't tease through the 0
no,
ever.
It's very different teasing through, because if you tease the Titans up, you're not going through that key number 3. It doesn't have the same value as teasing Philadelphia up or teasing Buffalo up.
Yep, completely agree. All right, so let's just quickly talk about those games on Sunday. Yeah. We have New Orleans, 8-point favorite, over under 49.5. It looks like some over money has hit the market all week. And then Philadelphia, this line at some random offshore shops opened at a 3-point dog. And Seattle, I'm talking about, opened a 3-point dog. That quickly moved. A lot of other places they opened right around a pick or -1. Seattle's now -1.5. I don't know if this is true, but the narrative that I've heard on Twitter, through other people, through the grapevine, is people are betting this Seattle game and betting on the Seahawks like they already know the final score. Is that true? And what are your thoughts on the 2 games on Sunday?
Well, first, the Minnesota-New Orleans game, we're going to need Minnesota pretty big in that game. Every parlay, every teaser is going to go to the Saints. We'll need the game to go under 2. We did have a guy we respect. He bet $30,000 on Minnesota +8. Knocked us down to 7.5, but I wouldn't be surprised if that number drifted up a little bit between now and Sunday because all the public players are going to bet the Saints. If that was the late game, talking about the 1:40 Pacific game, then I would definitely expect the number to go closer to 10 because every parlay from the whole weekend would go to New Orleans. But because it's in that 10 a.m. slot, all the parlays are going to go to Seattle in the late game, the same way they all went to the Bears last week on this weekend. The books are going to need Philadelphia huge, and you're absolutely right. Whatever you heard on Twitter is true. Everyone's betting Seattle like crazy. It's almost a 10-1 ticket count here at the Westgate Superbook. And it was just like this the first time they played. If you remember that game, Seattle was a small dog. Everybody bet Seattle like crazy. They went off favored in that game. They won the game on the road in Philadelphia. The main thing in this game for me, though, is the injury report. Keeping an eye. There's so many good players on both teams that are questionable. Dwayne Brown's questionable for Seattle. Zach Ertz is questionable for Philadelphia. You got to keep an eye on the injury report here, but I think Philadelphia finds a way to win this game. The only thing that terrifies me is the late touchdown drive from Russell Wilson. The man is just terrifying if you have money against him. You might be better off having a teaser to the Eagles there. I think you'll feel a little safer when Russell Wilson inevitably has the ball in his hands in the fourth quarter with a chance to win the game.
Yeah, especially against that secondary. And you're right. I mean, I have a couple bets on this game already, and it's Seattle. It's Philly tees to 7.5, and I also have Philly plus a half for small in the first half. And I looked at it. I'm like, you know what? These bets are just completely correlated with my fear of Russell Wilson late.
I don't blame you. How could you not be afraid of that guy? They got completely robbed on Sunday night. I don't know what the hell that was. Or Seattle will be playing Minnesota right now. We'll be talking about different matchups. But if you're not afraid of Russell Wilson, you haven't been paying much attention to the NFL this year.
Yep. And then just very quickly here, NFL futures market. What happens if the Ravens win it all? Is there one team that you really don't want to win, or is there one team where it would be the ideal scenario?
You know, the Ravens are our best case scenario in the whole pool. We win a tremendous number on Baltimore. We do lose on them in the conference, but we win so much on them in the Super Bowl that we'd be fine with seeing them get to the Super Bowl. I also just think it'd be nice to have new blood in the Super Bowl. Baltimore or Kansas City would be great to see.
Yep.
The only team that we really lose to right now, well, we lose to Seattle, but I don't think they really have any chance to win. We also lose to New England. But overall, we're in a really good position in the future book, and I'd love to see New Orleans play either Baltimore or Kansas City. I think it'd be a great right game. A lot of high-profile quarterbacks involved. That's kind of the matchup we're looking for, is New Orleans to come out of the NFC and play the winner of what should be a great AFC championship game between Kansas City and the Ravens.
Thanks for joining us, John. I'll catch you next weekend for the national championship. We'll be in town, so looking forward to catching up. But thanks for joining us, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and good luck this weekend.